So in my window, it says we're live streaming on Facebook.
Yeah, it looks like we are live. So let's just get to it, my man. Dude, I was listening to like Rage Against the Machine prep just because I was nervous for this one because I admire you so much, Chris. Let's just get to it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to my first ever live Closer Club via Zoom. Normally they're in person. This is episode 134. And the guest we have on today is probably this guy has changed my life. And if you guys know me and have spent any time with me, he's changed yours as well because I preached it. The author of Never Split the Difference, Chris Voss. Chris, how you doing, man?
Thanks, man. I'm good today. I'm fully caffeinated.
Good. So am I, as you can tell. Well, guys, if you didn't watch our episode with Chris and I last time, which was, I don't know, episode 100 or something like that, or late 90s, we talked about how to become a negotiator, how he became a negotiator. We talked about tactical empathy. We talked about getting the no first. That alone is mind-blowing. The late night DJ voice, keeping deals alive and eliminating competition. So we covered a lot. If you go to TheCloserClub.com or on my Facebook page, business page, you can go back and watch that episode. Today, we're going to do things a little, we're going to add some new things to it because there's still a lot more in the book. One of the things we didn't talk about, Chris, was, we talked about how you became a negotiator, but we didn't talk about you as a kid. Like, who was Chris as a kid, as a teenager? Did you go to college? Like, who were you, man?
Yeah, I'm son of Richard and Joyce Voss, Mount Pleasant, Iowa, small town in Iowa, blue collar upbringing. My father was entrepreneur, ran his own business, and blue collar business. He as a kid he sold fuel oil and gasoline products for Shell. He was kind of the middleman. They called it a jobber. He sent it to retail outlets, gas stations, and also supplied large farms and small industries. And actually, the real thing was when he first started that business, home heating oil, fuel oil for homes.
Okay.
And if you're taking fuel oil to homes, you're also fixing the furnaces. What did that mean? Middle of winter time, 11 o'clock at night, my dad's leaving the house to go fix somebody's furnace because they got no heat.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a blue collar can-do environment. You got a task, figure it out, and don't be afraid to get dirty. And that's the environment I grew up in. I think that's who I was. I was taught to work hard, be honest. My dad was an honest, hardworking guy, a little blunt, a little hard around the edges. But that's how I grew up in that Midwestern small town blue collar work ethic.
Did you get into trouble or were you pretty good?
Nah, I didn't really get into trouble too much. No, I wasn't particularly rebellious. Some people are, it wasn't really in my nature. So no, I didn't, trouble. You don't get into that much trouble in small town Iowa anyway. So yeah. No, I didn't get into a lot of trouble.
Did you go to college?
Did go to college, Iowa State University.
Hey, what are they, the Cyclones?
Cyclones, yeah. My older sister went there. I kind of idolized her at that age. In many ways, I still do. And I followed her, and then, I wanted to be far enough away from home that it was, a separate experience. Like, we worked for my father. If we were around, we worked. I needed to be far enough from home that he couldn't call me home at the end of classes to go get something done because it was too long of a drive, but close enough so I could get home if I needed to. And I wanted to be in a larger environment, major university, and experience growing. And, that period of time post high school, everybody's going through a significant growth period. I mean, even if it ain't post high school, from 18 to 23, 24-ish, that's gateway into adulthood. And I got my gateway at the 4-year college degree.
Cool. It's I didn't even think about this. Interesting about the gateway. Well, did you ever know what the average age of the hostage taker were? Like, on the other line, were they older? Were they younger? Any idea?
Yeah, interesting point. If I had to speculate, I would have guessed late 20s into mid 30s.
Interesting. I wonder what the psychology would be behind that. If they were just a desperate time in their life, they hadn't found their way. Who knows? Who knows?
Well, that's a funny thing about human nature. there's developmental periods of time that are true for every human being, regardless of gender, ethnicity. You know, the brain develops along certain lines, your physiology changes. One of the things that we study now, because we're trying to figure out the best way to teach the Black Swan method.
Right.
So we're constantly looking at neuroscience and biology. And, you know, for example, in your life, your period of time, your late teens, early 20s, probably your most powerful, most creative time in your life, your most unfettered. Isaac Newton invented calculus at age 23.
Wow.
Einstein came up with the papers that revolutionized physics at age 23, 24. You know, that's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
What are you going through at the time? And point of fact, your cognitive functions don't finish fully forming till your mid-20s. Then your body is still developing, and up into at age 28, your body's ability to regenerate itself starts to decline. And that's when a lot of people that we're teaching, there's a concept known as neuroplasticity, which is waking the brain back up into learning.
Okay.
Your neuroplasticity begins to go dormant at about this time. Also, most people think it goes away. The critical issue is it goes dormant. So how do you wake it back up? And when we're teaching the Black Swan method, we've actually got a number of ways to wake your ability to learn faster back up and accelerate your learning. And we're doing that all the time. I mean, I'm fascinated by this stuff. I'm just fascinated by it.
Yeah, it is fascinating. I think the psychology behind everything that is taught or that you teach in the book, to me, it flipped everything I thought about negotiation on its head, but in the best way ever. One of those things that we never discussed the last time, and I will tell you, Greg, who was on earlier, would have alluded to this as well. Man, accusation audits.
Yeah.
These things, like this is, if there's anything that's more powerful in the book, I would almost venture to say it's the accusation audit. So for those that maybe haven't read the book or are thinking of reading the book, talk to me a little bit. And there's a kind of a three-pronged question to this. What is an accusation audit? What makes them so powerful? And more importantly, why are people afraid of using an accusation audit? Because I was, until I figured out how it worked. And then I was like, oh my God. So what is it? Why are they so powerful? What makes people afraid of using it?
Well, we're bundling a skill, and then we're applying it proactively and preemptively. So the skill that we're bundling is, how do you deactivate negative thoughts?
Okay.
And first of all, why do you want to deactivate negative thoughts? So your brain in survival mode is 75% negative. And neuroscientists have mapped this out. There's something in the center of our limbic system, which is our emotional architecture, is an organ known as the amygdala. Everybody's got one. Most people have heard of something called the amygdala hijack. That's when your anger's out of control. Well, all your thoughts go through your amygdala, unless you, and I don't mean this to be a smart aleck, but unless you've actually got physical brain damage, and you don't.
Yeah.
All your thoughts go through your amygdala. Now, neuroscientists have mapped the amygdala out, and 3/4 of the real estate in your amygdala is dedicated to negative thought.
Wow.
Now, I'm a regular guy, and so I think if 3/4 of something is dedicated to one specific function, that's a dominating function. And by and large, psychology, Nobel Prize winning psychological economic theory backs this up, which means your biggest challenge in any negotiation is the negativity the other side is harboring. And if they're alive, they're harboring negativity because that's the way they're hardwired.
Sure.
So we learned in neuroscience that simply calling out a negative is the most effective way to deactivate it. Calling it out, how do you do that? If you're in a business deal, if you say, I don't want you to think of being greedy, that's a denial of the negative and aggravates it. And one of the reasons why most people are afraid of this method, because they've denied negatives in the past and it blew up in their face. Now they can't imagine going from, I don't want you to think I'm greedy, to I probably seem greedy. would deactivate it instead of aggravating it, deactivating. But the 2mm shift is to remove the denial and just call it out. Now, the neuroscience actually backs this up. There's been neuroscience experiments watching the amygdala that said calling out a negative diminished the electrical activity in the negative side of the brain every time. Ooh, every time. Now, what the black swan method does is we take it a step farther. We said, what happens if you call it out in advance? Hence the accusations audit.
Okay.
The name of the accusations audit, let's do an audit of all of the accusations they might level against us that we either have reason to believe, our gut instinct is telling us we should deny, or the context is telling us is probably there. And let's go proactive. Now, that's what really scares people, because they're used to the denial causing a negative reaction. They think, well, if I call it out and it's not there, they'll go, well, I didn't think you were greedy, but now that you mention it, I do.
Yeah.
Now, that never happens. What it does, it's the inoculating effect. And it's the same way that we inoculate from a virus, or it's the same reason we take antioxidants to prevent cancer. Do antioxidants prevent cancer? Yeah. Well, if I don't have cancer and I take them, I'll get cancer. No. But and as you said, like, again, the amygdala whispers in your ear, oh, if I call it out, it'll plant it. And the only way you're going to find out that it does plant it, like I could tell you this 80 billion times, until you've tested it out in a small stakes conversation, you're not going to believe it. And that's why we always coach people, and we coach real estate people constantly.
Absolutely.
Small stakes practice. I will tell you, for real estate agents, like, and we coach a lot. I coach alongside a guy named Steve Scholl out of Los Angeles. Steve and I do a lot of real estate coaching. Steve has said this phrase is worth literally $1 million. I've got bad news. As a real estate agent, how often do you have to deliver bad news?
Pretty frequently, especially in this market.
Pretty frequently, which is a side note, is one of the reasons why a full service, talented real estate agent is worth full fee, and is in fact a bargain at full fee. And I firmly believe that no real estate agent should ever discount their fee, because if you're good at what you do, you are a bargain.
Amen.
Referral fees in a business world are 10%. Somebody that provides a referral fee and is looking for 10% of the deal is doing far less work than any real estate agent has to do regularly. And you guys are only asking for 6% or whatever the local full fee percentage is. You're a freaking bargain. You're worth every dime.
Yeah.
And you should never discount. And this is one of the ways navigating negative emotions. In point of fact, every real estate transaction that you're engaged in is going to have a moment where you have to deliver bad news. Either the other side didn't accept your offer, or they've got a contingency, or they're not going to accept the contingency, or there's a problem in the inspection, or somebody's got to kick in to pay for an inspection. Or, I mean, there's a long list of bad news that a real estate agent is going to have to deliver in every transaction, which again is why two things are true. You're worth full fee, and a good real estate agent will never be replaced by these silly online websites where they're like, sell your house yourself.
Yeah.
Go on a website, find out the price, list your house yourself. They've been trying to replace real estate agents with that nonsense since the internet was invented.
That's right.
And the industry cannot get away from the necessity of a talented real estate agent.
I actually think in a hot market, I would actually tell you, Chris, they're worth more money now than ever before, because you're right. You could absolutely, not you're right. That's right. You can absolutely, sorry, that's always ingrained in my head. You could absolutely put a for sale sign outside of the house and get a multiple offer situation. The greatest realtors are the one that are able to negotiate a significantly better deal I would tell you they're actually needed more now than they are, because than they would any other time, because most sellers, they'll put a sign outside, they've got an offer and they'll take it. And they're only looking at the price. They're not looking at everything you discussed, all the terms and conditions of the loan. And on the commission piece, I get asked that a lot. And from the book, or what I gathered from the book, is when someone says, well, Chris, I want you to reduce your commission, my answer is always like, well, it sounds like you want to make as much money as possible.
That's a great answer.
Rather than saying it sounds like you want to save money, no, it sounds like you want to make as much money as possible. I do. Well, let's talk about that. Well, the other broker says he's going to do it for less than you. Well, and then my question is, less than me? Yeah, he said he's going to do it for half a point less. Well, did he talk to you about how he's going to save you money? Or did he talk to you about how he's going to make you the most amount of money possible? Because the discount brokers typically are only talking about how they're going to save them 1 point on a $500,000 deal, great, $5,000, where the great agents are talking about how they're going to make them as much money as possible, right? I will tell you, from an accusation audit, we have messed up. I've messed up in my own practice of running our brokerage. And I had my 14-year-old son in the car with me, and I had to call this agent. And I literally said, hey, I heard you had a tough discussion with your manager. And I said, it seems like you're pretty upset. I am. And I go, yeah, based on what she told me, that seems right. I go, it probably seems like we don't care about you very much. And that it almost sounds like, we've let you down. And I kind of went through it. And she literally said, that's exactly right, Alex. And the wall came down, and it free flowed from there. And that's the whole mirror label, not accusation audit. Well, the accusation audit was all the things she could have said. We let you down. We didn't fulfill what we were going to say, right. So on and so forth, and the piece. So I want to touch one more thing on this. The reason why people are afraid of using accusation audits is because most of the time they're framing it as, I don't want you to think I'm being cheap, versus it may sound like I'm being cheap.
Right. Or even in your example, if you would have been tempted to say, I don't want you to think like I don't want you to feel we let you down. I don't want you to feel we don't care about you. That's what most people would want to say. Yeah. And that would have caused a person on the other side to say, all right, now that you're denying it. Now you're denying it. Now it's making it worse.
It's the defensive position versus like, hey, this may actually be true.
Right.
There you go. All right, sweet.
All right.
So the other thing I want, and again, I cannot preach enough about accusation audits, monster game changer. Mislabeling. Now this is again, there's so much in the book, Chris. My God, I've read it 3 times, legit 3 times. Talk to me about a mislabel. Some people are like, mislabeling. What's Alex talking about? What's he talking about? What's a mislabel, and how does it work on your opponent?
Well, first of all, label to begin with is just putting, a verbal observation on something based on what you hear, sound, feel, look, see, seems like, sounds like, looks like. Mm-hmm. Now, being willing to get it wrong, that's what scares a lot of people. Well, what if I mislabel it? It seems like you feel that I'm being greedy. Nah, it's not that I feel you're being greedy. What I think is the real issue here is I got a better offer someplace else. Now, what you needed to know was that they got a better offer. Now, a mislabel is a genuine attempt to hang a label to demonstrate some understanding on what you think of the dynamic. Okay. Now, the insane thing about a mislabel is it triggers a correction from the other side. And the desire to correct is impossible to resist. And they'll correct you, telling you stuff they should never tell you. It's one of the top 10 law of negotiation gravity is the desire to correct is irresistible. You will trigger information from the other side that they would never tell you as a result of a question, and that they probably should never tell you anyway. And there's 2 important issues there. You need to get the closely held information that it's going to be game changing. And you don't want them to regret sharing it. And they don't remember what they said, they remember how they felt. And it's satisfying to correct. So they'll share it with you and never regret it because it was so satisfying in the moment to correct you. It's just, it's insane. The compulsion and the satisfaction from correction is overwhelming. And it's so overwhelming that in a lot of cases, first of all, people lose their fear of mislabeling, getting it wrong, because they know the consequences will be phenomenal. And as soon as they discover how powerful that is, they'll probably intentionally mislabel every third or fourth time because they know it's an acceleration mechanism to get at the information they really want.
Got it. It's interesting. In my own practice, part of what we do, or my role as a RVP, regional vice president, is I help coach our agents, right? That's most of it. But in that, I also work on helping grow the brokerage, help our existing agents grow their business, and then grow the brokerage. And I had one agent guy, I love this guy, trying to bring him on board. And he was trying to negotiate a better split with me. And our splits are our splits, right? And I said something like, I guess you don't have faith in me that I can help you build your business. And he was, and that's right. He said, no, Alex, that's not it. What's it is this. And he had something personally going on that he felt he needed to make more money on every transaction to pay off something that he had going on. And using the mislabel of like, I guess you don't think I can help you, immediately came back with, no, that's not it. Here's the reason. The black swan.
Yeah. And that was some private information that he's reluctant to tell you.
Oh, he laid it all out. And it was great, because then I knew, at least from my perspective, it wasn't that I was trying to negotiate against him or anything, because I wasn't. But what it helped me in was, now I knew how I could truly help this guy. Like, now I know what he needs in his life. Now I know how I can help take him to that next level. All right, man, I could talk to you all day, Chris, but I know you got a lot going on. Talk to me about COVID. Has anything changed in your style of negotiation as a result of COVID?
No, it's just, it's more information for us to factor into our negotiations. It helps us dial into people. I mean, like, what are they feeling as a result of COVID? Right now, I mean, about a year ago was panic. And probably about 2 or 3 months ago, I think it was panic fatigue. And now that we think we're coming out of it, there was a lot of optimism. And then this Delta variant's coming back, and people are like, you know what, at this point in time, I don't care anymore. I got vaccinated. The media is trying to get me cranked up all over again because they know that everything is an emergency. The world is ending every day. After a while, the world can't end every day because we would have run out of world. And I think that people are tired of being yanked around by the media, the left or the right. It doesn't matter. The media on both sides is yanking us around. The upside is, the advantage is, people are much more accepting of Zoom and much more appreciative of exactly when we need to be in person and what the advantages are, appreciative of both. And we've been teaching people a lot more about, all right, so you got Zoom, what's the best application of it? What's the additional stuff you could look for? And in point of fact, people say, I'm not in person, I don't got a feel for them on Zoom like I do on body language. Well, you actually have a different and more accurate view. Like, there is so much more unguarded body language on Zoom than there would ever be in person. So how do you get the unguarded body language? How do you trigger it? Actually, one of my favorite mechanisms, I love telling dad jokes.
Okay.
Everybody knows dad jokes because a dad is bad, it's painful.
Yeah.
I need to know who's giving me unguarded body language. I'm gonna throw out a dad joke and watch people's body language. And I got everybody assembled in front of me on Zoom. I need to know who on the other side I got to watch. And there ain't nothing like a dad joke to reveal who's going to give you the most body language.
All right. So
little stuff like that.
You went right. It's funny because my next question is how to negotiate over Zoom. So I got to put you to the test, Chris. Give me, I would love to hear a dad joke that you're using. And what behavior are you looking for that's alerting you to, hey, that's somebody I got to pay attention to, or that's somebody who's I'm good with them. They're being open and honest with me.
All right. So kind of my go-to joke is, what do you call a camel with no humps?
A camel with no humps. What?
Mm-hmm. Humphrey.
All right. So what are you looking for in body language?
Well, first of all, a dad joke usually takes a minute to sink in.
Yeah.
So I'm looking, first of all, if I see a contemplative look, that person's listening. They're smart enough to not multitask. Multitask might be the worst thing you could do for yourself and the best thing you could do for your competitors. I'm here to tell you, your competitors overtly or covertly are praying that you multitask. It is so bad for your productivity. I mean, if I felt we had any competitors, I would convince them to multitask because it would destroy their business productivity.
Okay.
But I need to know who's listening. So a dad joke, of course, always takes a minute to sink in as a play on words. I'm looking for contemplative looks on people's faces. That somebody's going to be dialed into the conversation. They're not multitasking and not looking at their kids. They're going to be a rich source of data. Then if they get it, then the smarter they are, the more ridiculous their body language is going to be.
Okay.
Because they're going to almost be offended that the joke is so stupid. And then they'll, head down, eye roll, almost falling out of the chair, looking as if they're going through some sort of physical pain. The more reaction I get, the more contemplative that person is.
Okay.
And also, when they're not talking, the most unguarded their body language is probably going to be. And that's the other thing on Zoom. If somebody's not the focus of the conversation, and in point of fact, in person, this is true as well. If they're not talking, they don't feel anybody's paying attention to them because they're not, which means, they could shift in their seats. They could, they're going to, in person or on Zoom, but especially on Zoom, people think that, the camera is not picking up what they're doing. One a conversation the other day, and I'm noticing this female, and she goes like this. And her husband walks over and hands her infant baby.
Okay.
Now I'm thinking, like, you just completely forgot that you were on camera, didn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, you suddenly got distracted by something in your environment, and you thought you went invisible. That kind of behavior is really common. And which is why, to some degree, people are going to shut their cameras off in Zoom. Well, they're not shutting them off because they don't want you to see their body language. They're shutting them off because they're multitasking and they're not paying attention, and they don't want to get caught reading the paper or whatever thing they're doing, which is not their job.
Mm-hmm.
We'll part of our quote small talk and banter that we engage with at the beginning, the Black Swan method, there is nothing that is not have a strategy based. Our banter is designed to do two things: establish a relationship, get you to turn your camera on. You'll turn it on because we're establishing a relationship or rapport with you. We're going to joke around with you. We're going to show you that you have no reason to be afraid of us because we're trying to make a better deal with you for the long haul. But, we don't engage in small talk because we feel like it. We engage in small talk, and we're also trying to draw a baseline on you of what you look like when you're telling the truth. And if you tell the truth, you will tell the truth during small talk.
Got it. Oh, that's interesting. So the small talk is a way to expose the body language, telling the truth, versus you're lying. All of a sudden, they're getting shifty and slidey and doing all this stuff.
Right.
That's cool, man. That's very cool. And you led right into it, because I'm an in-person guy by far. I love in person, but Zoom has become, the way of the world. But I'm old school, face to face, belly to belly, palm to palm. That's my MO. One last question, and then I want to look up. I haven't looked at my phone. And by the way, my boss Charles is probably watching. He's the president of Texas. Anytime we're on a meeting with our leadership team and they're all watching, it drives him crazy when they have their camera off. Like because they're doing something different for sure. This is a fun one. craziest case you've ever been involved in?
Wow.
What's the one story, like if you were at a party, and I saw you and I'm like, Chris, dude, what's a crazy story? What do you got for me?
Lone serial killer, lone kidnapper, lone serial killer in the Philippines.
Okay.
Now, by the time we're far enough into this thing, I already know that there's always a team on the other side. There's always a team. It doesn't matter if it's kidnapping, doesn't matter if it's a business deal. Now you got two people to account for on the other side. You got your decision maker and you got your deal killer, two different people.
Mm-hmm.
In a business deal, there's always the deal killer and a decision maker, two different people. In a real estate transaction, you got to take both the husband and wife into account.
That's right.
You know, wife could be the deal killer, and they're claiming that he's the decision maker. She's the deal killer. So, and I also know that the more somebody uses plural pronouns in all deals, the more powerful they are. Now, kidnapping is a business. Business has a division of labor. Somebody on the other side is a designated negotiator, as in any business. First person on the phone is not going to be the boss. It's going to be the designated negotiator. We get in the middle of this in this kidnapping, and it's criminal versus terrorist, which means by definition it's going to go faster. And this guy is just like plural pronouns all over the place. Like is not willing to accept, intentionally making himself look weak. And I remember thinking at the time, we're talking to the boss. This is one of the few times we got the boss on the phone right away. Now, I never imagined that it was going to be a lone kidnapper, because not only had I never dealt with one, I hadn't heard of one in a ransom kidnapping. There's different kinds: kidnapping for abduction, kidnapping for murder, parental kidnapping. That's a lone kidnapper. That's not a ransom kidnapping.
Mm-hmm.
Ransom kidnappings, there's always a team. And at the time, and to some degree still, there weren't that many people that knew more about kidnapping in the entire world. Probably 5 people had my level of experience and knowledge in the world. So if I hadn't heard of it, doesn't mean it didn't happen. It just means I wouldn't bet on it. Like, I haven't heard of anybody actually seeing a unicorn. That doesn't mean a unicorns aren't out there. They just probably don't exist. So it never occurred to me this guy's a lone kidnapper. Not only that, it doesn't occur to me there's another kidnapping I know that this guy we find out is responsible for, because we end up catching him. We do a rescue at the end of this thing. I'd heard about this kidnapping previously because the guy running our office in the Philippines said we will never go behind the local government's back, ever. If they catch us going behind their back, at least you are going to get thrown out of the country. We called it persona non grata, PNG. He said, if we do anything behind the government's back, you're going to get PNG, and I might too. Here's where it happened recently. We had a kidnapping where the kidnapper had the hostage, cut his ear off, sent his ear and a videotape of him cutting the ear off to the company. The company brought in a private negotiator, went behind the government's back and paid, and they kicked the negotiator out of the country as a result. I'd been given that as a cautionary tale a couple years earlier.
Yep.
We got the same guy here. He ain't been caught, so I don't know at the time that it is the same guy. We get into the kidnapping. Then the guy provides proof of life right off the bat, which throws me for a loop because I got a brand new proof of life strategy fresh out of the box that I'm dying to try. Guy gives us proof of life, and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna try my new toy. You're ruining my day.
Yeah.
But then we find out a proof of life strategy, which is basically what we call not a black swan method, calibrated questions, what and how, what's designed to uncover problems, how is designed to create implementation. Very specific usage of the words in a deferential fashion.
And you can change any question to a what and how. If you spend enough time practicing it, you can absolutely change every single question to a what or how question. Every single question. No doubt.
One of the secrets to gaining the upper hand in a negotiation.
Do you miss it?
Had the illusion of control.
Yep. Do you miss it, Chris? You missed it. Like, how do you get your adrenaline rush now, man? That was like, that's, you know,
The stuff that we do now is so much fun. And so many people are literally making their lives so much better that this is a different kind of a rush, and it's enormously gratifying.
okay. All right. One last question. I'm going to look at my phone. I heard you were on Joe Rogan, but I can't find it. Were you ever on Joe Rogan?
No, not yet.
He
Now, my
doesn't-
name has been mentioned a couple times on Rogan,
Got it.
but you know, I'm not sexy enough yet for Joe Rogan.
Man, you should be on Joe Rogan. I would watch that over and over again. All right. So my Facebook is not refreshing, so I'm not sure. Oh, there we are talking. So let me see if there's a way for me to look at it on my thing. If not, we'll just wrap it up and we'll call it a day. Tells me I'm on and nothing popping up. There's hold on. No, I don't know. You know, it may actually not be showing up. I'm not quite sure. Well, who knows? I'm sorry if it's not showing live. Well, they're going to see the recording, but let me see if anybody's telling me it's not showing up, Chris, and then we'll let you go.
All right, no worries. Tech happens, as they say.
They do, and I've never done this before. So yeah, I don't know what's going on. Well, you know what, Chris? If you're open to it, I know Greg is a huge fan. I'd love to see if maybe we can bring you in again sometime to talk, and well, we'll figure it out from there, man. I'm a huge fan, huge promoter.
I'd enjoy that. I'd absolutely enjoy that. Thank you very much.
You got it, Chris. Let me end this live. Thank you, everybody. Hold on one quick second. Let me just end the live. And all right, so we are done recording there. Chris, man, I appreciate you a lot. I really do.
Let's tell some folks how to follow up with the newsletter. How about that?
Yeah, let's do it. So so this is going to be, yeah, absolutely. Actually, what I'll do is, and I'll forward to everybody the link to the newsletter as well. This is still recording, so even though the Facebook Live isn't working, it's still recording. So we're all good there. So yeah, how do they find you? Where do they go?
Best way is a text the sign up function for the newsletter, which is complimentary,
Okay.
but it's concise and actionable, which is a real value. So you send a text message. The number you text to is 33777.
Okay.
The message you send is Black Swan Method, because you're learning a Black Swan method. So Black Swan Method, not
All one
cap
word?
sent, 3 words, spaces between each word. Good
Okay.
question. That's always an issue.
Got it.
And again, to the number 33777.
There you go, 33777. All right, Mr. Chris, dude, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for your time. I really do.
Thanks for having me on, man.
You got it, man. I'll see you later, Chris.
Bye.
Bye.